Welcome to the Blockbusters and Birdwalks podcast. I am the curator, Garrett Chaffin-Quiray. Today we have a conversation with a friend, Ed Rosa.
That's me. Hi. My filmmaking partner and I have a YouTube channel, Toothless Richard Productions, where you can see a number of our short films.
Ed, what did you think of Hobo with a Shotgun?
Not much. I did. I wanted to really enjoy it, and as someone who can appreciate high camp, so bad it's good. I thought that this thing did have the potential to be a real winner, but in the end, I just kind of found it to be kind of all over the place, and like some of the logistics of the universe within which the film is set were kind of hard to nail down. This is a minor nitpick, but the color grade was
all over the damn
and it was like nails on a chalkboard for the eyes.
I have a lot of experience dealing with student films, both from when I was a film school student having to make my own films, and then the occasional film student I now meet who wants me to watch and judge their films.
I think that's a pain we can both sympathize
right.
with each other.
We've been in those shoes, each of us. And the whole of Hobo with a Shotgun reeked of a student film done on a large budget at a much longer length than it can possibly tolerate. And that was a disappointment for me because the trailer included in the Grindhouse Spectacular back in 2005 was so very good.
The streets gave birth to a stray dog who is now fed up.
A 2-minute trailer is a great Hobo with a Shotgun.
Yeah.
And maybe a 20-minute Hobo with a Shotgun would be worth doing, perhaps even 30 or 40 minutes. But a movie that weighs in at 86 minutes, no.
Yeah.
It's too much movie. Tell me about Grindhouse and refresh me.
Well, so it started out because Quentin Tarantino and Robert Rodriguez, who are buddies, I think they buddied up on 4 Rooms, I'm not sure, which I know a lot of people don't like, but I think is a very enjoyable film.
I've had a real bad night.
They came up with this crazy idea to replicate the cinematic experience of their youth in the 70s that they treasured so much when grindhouse theaters were a thing. That's sort of something that's probably lost to society today because everything is a 18-screen Googleplex with Dolby and RPX seats that move and all this kind of stuff. But so they wanted to create double features you don't get anymore. So they wanted to do a double feature with like fake trailers and commercials and stuff like that to simulate the grindhouse theatrical experience from the 1970s to the point where they even deliberately cut an entire reel out of each of their respective films that are in there as to, the damaged prints and all this kind of stuff. And there were a number of fake trailers in the film. There was Don't by Edgar Wright. There was Machete by Robert Rodriguez, which ended up becoming its own film down the road. The Nazi Werewolf Women of the SS or whatever by Rob Zombie, which is the best thing Rob Zombie's ever done. And then there was this
Hobo with a Shotgun, rated R.
Every time I saw the film in theaters, once Planet Terror ended, half of the theater got up and left. I couldn't tell if that was because they were sickened by what they had just sat through, or if they just didn't understand there was another movie coming.
Yeah.
And so it ended up being sort of a blight on both of their careers.
And it's very long when you put all that material together. I remember it clocking in well over 3 hours.
Yeah.
Which I recall enjoying my 3-hour experience.
Absolutely.
Because I was in on what was going to go on, and that it was a return to a kind of barely remembered youthful experience because I was too young to truly go to the grindhouses.
Right.
However, it was talked about around me by the older kids I admired or some of the adults who had that low sensitivity, which I now respond to strongly.
Right. And many of the films have kind of survived and gone on to be kind of, cult favorites.
And I know in my personal DVD collection, I've got a Planet Terror volume and I've got a Death Proof volume in separate cuts because they were distributed distinctly from and broken into pieces. I have never rewatched the whole Grindhouse experience the way it was intended, including these false trailers, which turned into these kind of interesting movies.
Mm-hmm. He knows the score.
Yeah, ever since Blade Runner, I've been a Rutger Hauer guy. Mm-hmm. He's in my pocket of like Euro people I'm going to go for. And there he is, being bonkers. And so I felt once Machete found a market, and it did, and so on, it would be quick on its heels. And then that was the same year that I had a second child. I was a shut-in for a while. My life was just in disarray. So it just passed right through me before I could really pay attention.
Right.
So when we were pitching one another about things that we ought to catch up to and talk about together, I was really pleased to learn you hadn't seen it either, because that gave us an opportunity to watch something fresh, which is how we arrive at this scintillating conversation about a movie it sounds like we both don't really like at all. So what else about the movie irritates you?
Where and when is this taking place?
Yeah,
I know it's a Canadian film, and there was some indications in the film that it was supposed to be in Canada. But the film starts with a guy who could be a stunt double for Danny McBride, with like somehow they've got a manhole cover completely like sealed. There's no like welding lines on it, but somehow his head is sticking through a manhole cover. Sons of the Drake chase him where he falls down an open manhole. They're just taking the cover off, and they behead this guy in front of a whole neighborhood full of people. I didn't get the idea. I kept calling this movie Hobo Cop. It's this dystopian world in which crime has taken over. Maybe the police have been privatized. They don't get into that, but certainly the police are complicit, as we see. They didn't push that hard enough for me to buy the dystopian thing. And then, there was a moment where it's like, oh, like, we got to fight back. Like, the citizens need to kind of fight back against this, but...
Let me frame it with my own words. That we are in a parallel present where Hobo Cop shows up to try to remake his life and realizes that he can't. That's Rutger Hauer's character. He can't because there is a criminal kingpin called the Drake.
Right.
Who lords over this city with these ne'er-do-well sons of his. They're all doofuses. And the Drake is overtly cruel, and so are they. And they murder people wholesale constantly. Particularly at this club they run where they both sell drugs.
Right.
They also encourage the youth to come in and play video games.
Right.
They seem to run a strip club, and they do a murder club where you can string people up and then beat them to death or whatever. All this is in the same building.
And with impunity, no less.
There's a police force that they've got under payroll, you assume. There's no outside authority figure, and everybody around town knows that this is the condition of their life, and nobody does anything about it, including leave. You're left with the impression that you've walked into Dalton's Roadhouse, where there are also only about 8 or 10 people, and they're all angry at each other doing terrible things, and there's no bigger world than that. And why they don't just simply walk away? Because after all, the hobo rides into town on a train.
Right.
But for some reason, he chooses to stick around. So that's an inconsistency that makes no sense whatsoever. The Drake has this criminal underworld where every single day they're murdering people who are from the local community, including other hobos. Okay, that could happen for a while, I guess, but you'll run out of bodies eventually.
Sure.
If literally every day you're killing people as entertainment for other people, you got to have millions of people. And this does not look like a very big city.
Yeah. And I don't get the sense that there's, a large influx of new residents all the time to keep the supply fresh.
And there is a detail about there being school children that the Drake's sons barbecue to death inside of their school bus. So it's possible to summarize what the plot of Hobo with a Shotgun is, but there's no reason to do so. It's an excuse to watch a now deeply aged Rutger Hauer do violence in all kinds of crazy ways.
Yeah.
And sometimes that works. So let's flip the script. What are the moments in this that really work?
One of the sons of the Drake, I don't know which one, if it's, I don't remember if it's
Slick or Ivan.
Or Ivan. One of them looks like, there's a guy who sort of has achieved a little bit of YouTube popularity recently. He's a Tom Cruise impersonator.
Oh, I can see what you mean.
Hi, I'm Tom Cruise auditioning for the role of Eddie Cullen. This is the last time you'll ever see me.
burning the children alive on the bus, for example, got a chuckle out of me because because
we're cruel bastards.
Yeah, right. And it's like I do kind of appreciate. I like a film that's provocative. I like a film that likes to sort of plunge its knife into the audience and kind of twist it. And okay, so we were talking about sort of the amateurishness of this. I don't know how to describe the gonzo nature of the way this thing was kind of shot. Like a lot of the angles and the camera moves.
There's a lot of
stuff.
canting and a lot of low angle shots,
right?
Where the camera swings into an actor and it gives this funny little juice of energy. I like that when I see it because it does give me that ring of excitement.
Right. It reminded me a bunch of the two films that I think sort of made that an art form, and that's Crank and Crank High Voltage. Two of the most underappreciated films of all times, critically speaking.
You don't go to a movie like this to see anything that's serious or that it's intended to elevate the spirit. You're here to watch terrible stuff and get some fun out of it.
Yeah.
Now, there are a couple sequences that do that for me. Let me highlight them and see if you agree. In the opening kill, which is the manhole beheading of the Drake's brother, there's a geyser of blood. And the instant that happens, this woman who's dressed in a white bikini starts to writhe over it, like it's a sexual fountain.
Right.
I thought now that they know what they're up to, and I thought, great.
Yeah, that was pretty funny. Although I couldn't get over the unhygienic nature of. You don't know what this guy had. I hope you're going straight to get a tetanus shot.
Exactly, right after
you're done your striptease and his geyser of blood.
The next detail that comes to mind is towards the end of the piece, our hobo befriends a hooker with a heart of gold named Abby. Abby can hardly act her way out of anything, and I do mean that as a demerit for the actress Molly Dunsworth. She is, by circumstances, forced to push her hand through an active lawnmower, which strips her, degloves her arm, leaving the bone, which she uses to impale a bad guy. Now that is Grindhouse, baby.
Yeah, totally.
Terrific. I laughed in my living room. I had headphones on so nobody would hear what I was listening to, and I thought that was just terrific.
Yeah. Once again, I couldn't imagine the agony that one would have felt using your hemorrhaging stump as a weapon of force like that. But that was pretty brilliant.
But sometimes when that kind of crazy violence jumps off, even in something that's clearly as exploitative as this is intending to be, I do want to sense that there is a realistic investment and impact on the person receiving that kind of injury. And the reason why this movie screws it up is there's so much blood gushing out of the hobo's body at various points.
There should be consequences.
Right.
There should be real consequences.
And I say that as a person who's very rarely mixed it up physically with others. And at my current age, if somebody were to punch me, I'm sure I would just have a vagal reaction, drop out, and be unconscious for a half hour or more. As a younger person, I might have said, I could take some punishment. But let's be serious. There's a sequence when our hobo is, he's beat up, he's stabbed, and then he's beat up some more with a razor-sharpened ice skate attached to a bludgeon. He just puts on his flannel and goes about his business.
Right.
And these aren't things that I can accept. And at this point in time, Rutger Hauer is a guy, I think, deep in his 60s. Now, I'm not saying that a movie has to be absolutely realistic, because that's not what these movies are about. But the emotional realism that I want to invest in is feeling like the punishment is going to put somebody down.
Right.
Or that time has to stretch.
Right.
You have to go into hibernation for a while, which is often how exploitation movies work. Somebody receives a terrible beating, they go off into the woods, they eat berries for 3 months and train.
Right.
And they come back and beat up the bad guy. That's not how this movie works. It happens in about 2 days of screen time.
Yeah.
Which is Hobo meets Abby. He convinces her they ought to start a new life together. He wants to have a lawn mowing service, and he wants her to be a teacher. And then they have to go kill the Drake and all his minions. Yeah. And that's it. That's the movie.
Yeah. I didn't exactly buy the desire for revenge either. Why was he so motivated to try to intervene? I got to imagine a true hobo who has traveled the world.
True hobo with a shotgun.
He must have seen all of society's ills all the time. Is Abby the first prostitute he's ever met?
Right.
Why is he so,
Is the Drake the first kingpin he's ever met? Is this the first set of crooked cops he's ever met?
Right.
Is this the first time he's ever seen a lawnmower for sale at a pawn shop?
Yeah.
Why a lawnmower? There's no backstory to this guy.
Right.
And in some ways, that's Rambo-like.
You get the backstory on Rambo, and that's how you wind up on Rambo's side.
Yeah.
You were just expected to be on Hobo Cop's side here.
Now, I'm usefully aware of the literature enough to know that homelessness often coincides with mental illness and disorder of various sorts and various addiction problems. We don't have the picture that our hobo has substance abuse troubles. We get glimmers in some of his monologues that he might be a bit cray-cray.
Right.
Perhaps the most notable one is when he goes to talk to some children.
People look at you and think of how wonderful your future will be. They want you to be something special, like a doctor or a lawyer. I hate to tell you this, but if you grow up here, you're more likely to wind up selling your bodies on the streets or shooting dope from dirty needles in a bus stop.
The writer of the movie, John Davies, was having a little bit of fun with the director, Jason Eisner, trying to figure out how to make this character into something more serious. And that is this big speech he delivers about...
The bear is a solitary animal. They like their space. They live in a magic circle. They don't mind if you're like a mile away, but if you would get inside their circle, they would maul you.
And this was just the residue of some good ideas that went really kind of nowhere.
Yeah, I found myself towards the end kind of checking my watch.
You can run with us. We got everything you need. Run with us. We are free.
This is Blockbusters and Birdwalks, a conversation between Garrett Chaffin-Quiray and...
Ed Rosa.
Boop boobity doo.